going. Stop. I don't know what that was.
What is your profession?
Holy crap, sunshine in Washington. Well, if you're from sunny places, this is a cloudy day, but for us, this is sunshine. I picked up another truck this week. There's some parts on here that I like a lot better than the other one I got, and it was cheap enough that I should be able to easily make money on selling drivetrain and other parts like that. So between these two trucks, I'm gonna make one good truck, hopefully. So today, we're gonna mess around with this engine, get it cleaned up, start to remove all the unnecessary stuff. I've got a adapter plate showing up, hopefully here in a couple hours, to adapt it to that transmission. So if I can get enough of this stuff done, taken off, removed, simplified, then when the adapter plate shows up, I can bolt it on, and then we can bolt it into this trans, and I can start figuring out motor mounts. One of the things I need to do today is pull off this flex plate, get it ready to put the new flywheel on. Now let's take off the AC compressor. Got this adapter plate here, and hardware and some other things I'm going to need to adapt this engine to the Jeep. So I'm going to try and see about installing this thing. It's a pretty snug fit. Now we need to install these 4 OEM bolts that hold the adapter to the engine. Now the fun part. This section of the oil pan comes out and gets into the same space that our starter needs. So what we're going to have to do is cut and trim this oil pan in order to accommodate space for the starter. Looks like we fit to me. I don't usually like grinding aluminum. I tried to make it as clean as possible. Of course, there's dust everywhere now. One by one, I'm going to be pulling each of these bolts out, and I'm going to clean the hole out, put a little bit of Loctite, and then torque these down to 40 foot-pounds. Got a brand new flywheel. The other one was pretty warped and worn, so I decided to pony up the 70 bucks and get a brand new one. The clutch, I don't think has ever been used. There's not even dust on it, you know, and then there's no wear or anything on this part of the pressure plate either, but when these come with like a coating on them, it's kind of like a oil, you wipe it off. And I think so somebody wiped it off, they installed this on the rig, and I think maybe they never got it running after that. So I'm going to clean this rust off and reuse all this stuff. The only thing I think that they didn't want to replace was the flywheel. Everything else looks pretty tip-top. So this adapter has a machine fit that fits over the top of this. and then it's got the pilot bearing preloaded in there. So on the other side, this is going to be under here, and what we have to do, let me put you back on the tripod. What we have to do is put this under here, turn it to where all the bolt holes are lined up correctly. Ooh, that's close. Is that right? That's right. So we're going to thread our bolts in on this side, and then we got to flip it over and drill holes on the other side. So I'll do that now. So now this is the back side. Since we zipped all those bolts into the front to hold our adapter on, we have to punch and mark all of our holes and then drill them. Now you can see we have a nice mark for each hole to help guide our bit. So I'm going to drill a pilot, and then I need to drill it out to a 25/64 is what our end result's going to be. But I want to do a pilot hole first. Now you can see the holes we drilled. Dangerously close to the center, but it seems like they all turned out okay. Then the kit supplies some washers, and you just thread these back down in there. We're just doing we're just testing the assembly. We're not going to use Loctite and stuff yet. I want to kind of get it all on there and make sure everything lines up correctly, and then Loctite everything and zip it all together. All right, let's mount this thing. So we're going to do I already cleaned all the bolt holes and everything out on the crankshaft. So now, and I cleaned all the crankshaft bolts themselves as well. So we just got to mount it on there. I'm going to snug everything down, and then one by one I'll go through and I'll torque it down to spec and put red Loctite in there. Alright, everything's test fit. I have the glow plugs out of the engine, so it's pretty easy to turn right now. Doesn't sound like anything's rubbing on the back of our adapter. So I think we're all good to continue. Torque these things down, which will be a little interesting, seeing as how there's no compression in the engine right now. But we'll make it work. So here's something I didn't know about the 4.0 versus the 4.2. The clutch for the 4.0, the splines are the same, but I didn't realize until just now that the pilot bushing is a different size. This clutch alignment tool is for the 4.0. I need one for a 4.2. I called the local auto parts store. They happen to have one in stock for like $5. So I'm going to go commandeer my wife's Jeep and drive up there. You hear that? Yep, wife has a diesel Jeep too. That looks better. Apparently they use a bigger pilot bearing in the new 4.0s, but 4.2 uses this size here, so let's go home and test it out. Let's install this clutch. So you've always got a spot that'll say flywheel side. You don't want to put it on backwards. And you put this clutch alignment tool in there. There we go. Install it into your pilot bearing. What it does is it keeps it lined up while you're installing your pressure plate. Now, usually you can kind of tell how straight everything went in by how easy it is to pull out your clutch alignment tool. This one's nice and easy. So everything should be pretty squared up. Now it's time to test fit it in the truck. One thing I was worried about is this factory oil filter that's way back here, and it looks like I might have an issue there. If I have to build a relocation plate of some kind, I can do that. But I do have a concern here where the back of the turbo is going right into this box for the heater core. So that'll be interesting. Once I trim these mounts down so I can fit the engine a little better, you know, some of that stuff might remedy itself. The engine's still a hair high, so once it gets in there, maybe this will, I don't know, I'm hoping some of this stuff will work itself out. I'm hitting stuff everywhere. This profile is way too long, so let's see what we can do to shorten it. I believe this is stainless. This was off the back of the last downpipe, so I cut a rib off of it, and I had a 2.5 inch 90. I've got a pile of random exhaust fittings back there. So I don't know if this is going to be possible or not, but this 2.5 actually slips perfect on the back of the turbo, and then if I can get this to weld, and I definitely don't know if you can marry stainless to whatever sort of aluminized coating stuff they put on normal exhaust, but it's worth a shot. Who knows? Well, we got the new downpipe on. Yeah, welding thin, dirty stainless isn't as fun as it sounds with the MIG welder, but it is what it is. Hopefully this will give us enough space to clear. We're quite a bit forward now. So, and I've got to loosen up to where I can still turn it. That's kind of the whole point of keeping this collar on there instead of just welding it direct and doing something like that. I'd rather be able to use this collar so I can take the exhaust on and off at will. I'm going to remove this for now. This is the OEM oil filter housing, and I'm going to remove it just so I know that I can fit this thing all the way in there, and then I'll figure out what to do about it. I'd like to go remote mount. And still not sure what I'm going to do about this yet either, but I'm going to remove the oil cooler off and remove this oil filter housing off as well. Shit. Oh gosh. Now that we moved and removed a bunch of stuff off this engine, hopefully it'll fit. Wish me luck. We've got a few places of concern, but it needs to go back another 1.5 inches or so, so I think we're going to clear our steering. We will be putting a lift kit in, so that'll hopefully give us enough space between the center section of our axle and the bottom portion of our oil pan, but if we have to make an oil pan, we will. So looks like we're clearing here on our downpipe. Biggest issues now are, I should have just cut these all the way off. I was trying to save myself some work, but I ended up just making some more work. So I'm going to cut these off to make it a little easier to swing this thing so I can get it where it needs to be, and then just start from scratch on those. Do you like only using tools for their intended purpose? Boo. Do you like experimenting with tools and making them do things on the cheap? Yay! I'm going to try to turn this into a mill. I'm not going to mill anything crazy. I'm not going to be, you know, trying to spline axles or anything. I just want to be able to make some adapters and stuff, and have the ability to mill a line or something simple. So we're going to experiment with that next time. Hopefully it's not a catastrophe. But I've got this gasket I'm going to use as a template to make our oil filter housing that just decided to spill nice black gooiness all over my shop. We're going to try to make an adapter so we don't have to have this taking up all that space on the very back of the engine bay next to the firewall. I found some goodies for that project in the back of my shop. So we have a remote mount oil filter assembly that I was going to use on a turbo Volkswagen bus back in the day, but that never came to fruition. And then a oil cooler assembly. It looks like everything should work out okay. We'll make it work anyway. So clearance wise, things are looking pretty good. We have to fabricate some engine mounts next time, and a little bit more fitment challenges, but it's coming along. I think one more good weekend and it should be sitting under its own weight and probably have all the bugs worked out on our oil filter situation. So if you like what you saw, you want to see more, click subscribe. Thumbs up, all that stuff. Support us on Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching.
What is your profession?